Good morning. This is Mark Ray with Floppy Disk Consulting, back with my final project presentation for my senior capstone project earmarked Baking in Security that I have completed for Il Forno restaurant. It has been a long road, but I have confidence that the final project that I provided to my client has met the requirements that we discussed in our initial meetings. For my significant project in this class, I worked with a local restaurateur in my hometown of Lakeland, Florida, by the name of Il Forno. In this project, there were three major milestones that we were aiming to address. They needed a series of training modules to educate and inform staff on dangers and preventative measures of cybersecurity. They also needed a means for which to ensure that the training was meeting their needs, for which we decided a quiz would suffice. And finally, they needed to have reporting functionality to both understand who has engaged with the material, as well as how well the participants performed in adopting the material. My team consisted of just myself. I was so excited to work with staff at Il Forno to address a real concern for their business. Throughout my time in the IT industry and my current course study here at Fort Hays State, I felt that I was uniquely qualified to deliver a quality cybersecurity literacy training program for them. In my current professional role, I hold the title of a second-tier IS engineer in the Identity and Access Management Department. I am involved with the review of new and established application security plans. My responsibilities also require me to stay current about the most prevalent threats that businesses face. I regard myself as self-motivated. I have a passion for security and thoroughly enjoy problem solving. Throughout my 17-year career, I've worked with dozens of different companies from nearly every business sector. These experiences permit me an instinctive ability to understand what a business owner may need and translate that into a functional solution aimed at addressing their issues. My current studies have focused on cybersecurity, which is a new direction for my career. All of my knowledge and experiences were put on full display throughout the work I delivered in this capstone project. Having returned to school after already being established in IT inspires me to spread the knowledge that I've gained to educate businesses in my community, as I aim to be a pillar of inspiration for my community in the coming years. For this project, I established the business entity name Floppy Disk Consulting to serve as the identity for my work. This branding fostered an aura of added legitimacy to the work, and my mission statement was very clear and guided every interaction that I had with my client. It also kept me accountable for the quality of the work that I aim to deliver. I truly feel that the product that I've created fulfills on the objective of empowering my client and provides them with a solid foundation from which they can face security challenges of the future. As I mentioned, my client for this project was Il Forno Restaurant, which is a well-established, much-loved mainstay in my hometown of Lakeland, Florida. Throughout the years, Il Forno has been a passionately involved business that dependably supports the image of our wonderful city. And they function as a good citizen through their support of various nonprofits and youth organizations. They take a great deal of pride in the relationships that they've gathered over the years and consistently demonstrate their reliability as an organization. My contact throughout the project has been Il Forno's front of house manager, David Hopkins. David has been with Il Forno's nearly since their inception in 2004. He is one of the ever-present faces of the organization that plays a key role in establishing trust with patrons and maintaining the reliable image of the organization that they so effortlessly establish with every business interaction. We initially chatted at length about challenges that kept him up at night, as stories of other local and national organizations face issues relating to cybersecurity attacks. By listening to David's concerns and taking note of the human factor, which is likely the most recognizable weakness in their security plan, we established the goal of staff education through training modules. An in-person training was discussed in the initial stages, but as their staff availability does not bode well for everyone being in one place at the same time, I was able to address this challenge by providing pre-recorded educational material to help them address their concerns. This final project consisted of 3 necessary deliverables: training content, a post-engagement quiz, and built-in reporting functionality. To accommodate the first of these tasks, I built 4 PowerPoint slide decks that trained about the topics of social engineering, malware, phishing attacks, and mobile device security. I then recorded the training presentations using the built-in recording functionality of PowerPoint. I kept the look and feel of each presentation consistent by design. I did not want to distract the students with a starkly different visual representation from one module to the next, which allowed them ample opportunity to absorb the information. I also followed a systematic approach to the content delivery of each module, starting with a brief introduction of the subject and myself, then followed that with an in-depth discovery of the target security risk of that module. Followed that by warning signs and mitigation techniques, and then I closed out each training module with a poignant recap of the information and an offer to reach out to me with any questions or concerns. With the training modules ready, I exported the content into separate videos that I then delivered through a website that I built custom for the client's needs. Initial testing and feedback has been positive, and the total amount of content that I was able to deliver to the client was just over 21 minutes of priceless cybersecurity training. For the second required milestone of my project, the creation of a post-training quiz, I leveraged my rudimentary but serviceable skills in Python to create a simple but effective multi-choice quiz. Several iterations of this solution were tested, and the variants that I ultimately delivered to my client was a web app that leveraged Streamlit for its inherent end-user ease of use. Many challenges were found at this point in the project, which we'll circle back to in just a few minutes. In the end, the solution that I've provided to my client addresses the second milestone of the project in a visually pleasing and neatly accessible package. The initial landing page simply prompts the user for their name. Once they hit the enter key, they are presented with a series of 11 questions that test them on each of the topics that I covered in the 4 training modules. Once the participant is happy with their selections, there's a submit button that, when pressed, displays their results so that they understand how well they performed. The final of the 3 major milestones of my project was to have some reporting functionality built into the quiz so that management could review this valuable data if they chose. The path that I elected to accomplish this was to write logic into the Python application to write the pertinent data to a JSON file upon the user's completion of the quiz. With the JSON file, I'm able to review the quiz results in real time in an easy-to-read clear text format. Upon my client's request, I can leverage the import data functionality within Excel to present a more easily digestible output from the raw data, and could even include revealing chart if something like that were desired. My project deployment went rather smoothly, but there were many challenges along the path that have given me great experience moving forward. During the creation of the topics and modules, I spent time to identify exactly what cybersecurity risk would be relatable to my client. With the training at this level, I felt that it was important to not expect any previous exposure to the topics. After all, my main aim was to train them in cybersecurity literacy, not to turn them into cyber sleuths. I also spent a great deal of time planning the structure of the training delivery. What we ended up with, I feel, is a very logical, organized solution that makes the best use of the content delivery. When I was challenged with creating a quiz, I went into it not having any background of how to create the quiz nor deliver it. I explored several different options and felt that I would have the most control over the style and content by writing something custom in Python. After that was ironed out, I circled back to the training material to capture the points that were strongest in the material, and then formulated my questionnaire around those points. This phase introduced a great deal of pain into my project, which we'll be discussing at length in just a moment. For the reporting functionality that was required as my third deliverable, it was decided to keep the data output scaled down to just the most revealing details. Name, score, percentage, and date really provides all the pertinent data that my client would need to track their staff's engagement. Due to this simplicity we were looking to maintain, the structure almost built itself. With just the 4 data points we defined, my client is easily able to understand the output and take steps if warranted. As for retrieving the results, working with the raw data of JSON just made the most sense. The flexibility that the format provides allows the data to be visualized if desired, or just delivers as an informative text output, depending on the requirements. During the project, I would like to highlight 3 minor challenges and 2 real main pain points. As I began my research, I generated pages of details that I wanted to deliver on. However, one of the main points the client focused on was providing concise information that could be easily digested and put into effect. The amount of data that I had generated didn't particularly align with this goal, so I'd spent valuable time paring down what I had. Next, as web design is not my typical forte, the site creation presented a degree of challenge. What I've delivered addresses the requirements and needs of the client, but I completely accept that the design aesthetic may be lacking a certain level of refinement. And the third challenge was resource availability, which was not on my side. When I got to the point where I needed to record the modules, it was my initial intent to have professional voice talent deliver the audio for the final product. However, their schedule mandated that they were out of the country during that time frame, so I was left with recording the information on my own. Now on to the 2 real pain points that I ran into. The Python quiz creation went smoothly at first, and I was satisfied with the process, but I had written it only in the only way that I really knew how at that point, and all I had was a text-driven application that was not user-friendly. I then revamped the program to leverage tk-enter for its graphical user interface. I was really pleased with the application at this point, but it still looked somewhat blocky, and I also found that it couldn't be delivered to the users through a web portal. I then found Streamlit, which allowed me to massage the program and provide web interface access that I needed. I thought all my challenges were adequately addressed at this point, but there was just one major challenge that I hadn't considered. I was presenting my web application from a GitHub repository that the Streamlit Community Cloud pulled from. At face value, everything appeared to be functioning correctly. But then I discovered that the hosting solution was unable to write the results of the quiz back to the JSON file that resided in my repository. So close, but I couldn't leave one of my 3 major deliverables in this state. In the end, I stood up a web server at my home and am hosting the quiz from here. With some back-end port forwarding, my report deliverable is being effectively addressed. Throughout the course of this project, I gained new respect for the talent and time required to compile and deliver a concise cybersecurity training. As well, by simply necessity, I feel like I've grown substantially in my ability to bend Python to my will. As I was taking the mandatory Python class, I just considered the eventual ability to share an application online with others as a built-in part of the language, but had never truly taken the time to understand what standing up that web application took from a Python perspective. Given more time, I would have liked to use the quiz to pinpoint areas where the student performed weakly and use that to suggest some of the modules they could revisit, but that was not within the scope of this engagement, so I didn't dedicate any time to learn how I might actually be able to accomplish that. And my final learning point, not new information, but greatly reinforced, is the fact that communication is king. Being on the same page with my client and remaining transparent throughout all our interactions really helped the interpersonal requirements of this project go smoothly. With the product that I have delivered to Il Forno, I see four major benefits to their business and staff. The education now available to them mitigates risk by significantly reducing the likelihood that one of their staff would fall prey to an attack. Minimizing their attack surfaces serves to protect their proprietary data that they're responsible for. As well, now that the staff can serve as a cybersecurity strength instead of a vulnerability, my client is better prepared to spot unusual activities and prevent attacks from escalating into a breach. And finally, the trainings now available to them cultivate security into their culture and encourages vigilant behavior when the staff is conducting business online on behalf of the company. As a final result of the project, I would say that the delivery was a success with minimal drawbacks to the client. All three of the primary goals that I set out to accomplish were addressed, and the client is happy with the solution that's been delivered. I've provided a quick snippet here of my initial cost estimate versus final cost to drive home one point of failure of the project. Although the solution that I delivered was on time and properly addressed the needs of the client, the additional time that I took dedicated to building and deploying the quiz resulted in the expense of the project increasing. Time and therefore money was saved in some phases of the project and by foregoing the voice talent, but that was still not enough to completely recoup the expense. Thank you so much for your time spent today reviewing my final project presentation. I look forward to any feedback that you may like to impart, and I hope that some of my challenges and wins may communicate knowledge to you for any project that you're involved with in the future.